All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to call to order the April 25th, 2023 City Council meeting. It is 7:01 p.m., and if you are able, please join us and stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next, we'll move on to open forum. Thank you for attending tonight's meeting, and I have a few reminders about the open forum. You can call into the open forum by dialing 1-415-655-0001 and use webinar access code 245140939997 and the password 1234. So when you come up to speak or if you're calling in, we'd ask you to state your name and your address, and I'll start timing after that, and you can sign in before I start the timing. You'll have 3 minutes. We want to provide a safe platform to state our opinions about municipal policies, so please stick to issues. This is not a forum to discuss individuals. The council will be listening and taking notes, but will not be responding to the comments. This open forum is designed to hear from you, not to be a debate. Thank you. City Clerk Leslie, is anyone on the line?
There is not.
Okay, so then we'll move forward with the people that are here in the audience. And first I have Kathleen Balaban, who would like to speak to us. So I'll get my timer set, and if you would like to sign in and state your name. Oh, I'm sorry. Did we miss that? Do we have some paper for them to sign in? Otherwise, I have some here. I'll pull some out. My apologies for that slip up here. I'll get you a sheet of paper to sign in on. Make sure we have a pen that works. All right. And then Ms. Balaban has provided handouts for the staff, or the council, so we'll be passing those down.
Hello, my name is Kathleen Balaban. I live at 6526 Stevens Avenue South, and met before. And I come before you to ask that you remove number 48 pertaining to the $10 million bond and appointing the HRA to conduct a public hearing. Last week, Sun Current had six Bloomington legal notices, one for their annual Charter Commission meeting and one for a bid request and four for public hearings at the Bloomington City Council. This is the manner in how a home rule city operates. I'm asking that the HRA is not given the approval for the public hearing and that it will be held by the CC, in other words, City Council. The importance of a public hearing is to show your authority. You are the elected officials. We selected you, and according to our city charter, you are responsible for every single commission, every single authority, every single board, whether you recognize it or not. We have increased the city manager's financial authority to $175K for expenditures and give the public hearings to the commissions rather than here in your chambers. It is time to take your authority back and really look at the data presented and the bottom line there. HRA is, in fact, in its own way, we have a fox in the henhouse. Yesterday, the regular PC meeting was canceled and replaced by a workshop on Sturgis parliamentary rules. You know, that book of Hoyle? As noted in this one-page document from their notes, one page. And it says that it's supposed to be the responsibilities. The responsibilities of the Planning Commission is supposed to, in other words, the CDD, the fox in the hen house, is telling the Planning Commission what their responsibilities are, rather than the administrative staff of of the City Council. We have administrative people that are not departmental. Our commissions are not departmental. They're selected by you. Therefore, you should be doing the training, not the departments that represent those commissions. In other words, when you have the department, such as the CDD, coming before the commissioners and telling them how to operate, that gives the CDD authority, whether it's perceived or not. It gives them the authority. In other words, I'm more important than you are. I'm telling you how to operate. No. Go back to that and rethink that. That, again, is the fox in the training hen house. I have given each of you a list of the 2021 census for RF from the website noted in the bottom, and it tells you what our census was in 2021. We have only about 7,165 students or citizens that are under 18 years old, and yet 29% of our property taxes go to the school system.
Ms. Balaban,
That's a lot of money for 7,200 kids.
Ms. Balaban, you're reaching the end of your time. If you could finish up quickly, thank
Well,
you.
actually, I'm right at the bottom. It says, how many of them live in Ridgefield? In other words, where is our money going? So thank you very much. I'd just like us to be inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Larry Ernster, who would like to speak.
Good evening. My name is Larry Ernster. I live at 6727 Elliott Avenue South. I have some questions about item 4B on the consent calendar. Reading staff report number 47, I come away with the following facts. You are proposing to issue a $10 million bond to refurbish a Fort Snelling building that is not part of Richfield. You expect that this will result in another 200 students for Richfield. Richfield Senior High and Richfield schools are already performing at a substandard level. Richfield Senior High currently has 1,137 students and is ranked 6,492nd nationally, 110th in Minnesota, and 84th in the Minneapolis area. Richfield Middle School already has 920 students, and only 21% are proficient in math, and only 39% are proficient in reading. Yet you want to absorb another 200 students into this underperforming school system, knowing that every student comes with additional expenses for ESL, special needs, transportation, food, teacher support, and results in increased class sizes. Now, the borrower of the $10 million is Fort Snelling Leased Housing Associates, LLC. I'll refer to them as the borrower. The borrower is a relatively new company incorporated in July 2019. It appears the name was selected specifically for this venture. Richfield will be issuing a bond, essentially a signature loan, issued solely on the creditworthiness of the city of Richfield. and that money will be given to the borrower. It appears you want to provide $10 million to a developer for a project outside of Richfield, and then increase our taxes by requesting a local sales tax because the city can't afford to maintain its parks. The questions I want you to answer tonight are, number one, why refurbish a building outside of Richfield? Number two, how will bringing in another 200 students improve the quality of education for our existing students? Number three, what is the borrower's track record? Number four, what security has the borrower pledged to secure the loan? Number five, why did the borrower not approach a traditional bank to secure the loan? Number six, why does Richfield want to function as a bank?
Mr. Ernster, you're reaching the end of your time. If you could finish up. Thank you.
And lastly, and most important, how will this benefit the city of Richfield? I have printed copies of the questions I want you to answer. May I approach that?
Yes, thank you, sir. City Clerk Leslie, has anyone else called in to the meeting for open forum?
There's currently no one online.
All right, is there anyone else in the audience who wishes to speak? All right, then that takes us through our open forum. Thank you all for your comments. Next, we're going to move on to two presentations. And the first one is a proclamation to recognize Arbor Day. Is there anyone here to receive the proclamation?
Oh, Madam Mayor, I think we need to go back and approve the minutes.
You know what? Thank you very much. I missed that. I skipped ahead. My apologies. So, is there a motion to approve the minutes of the City Council work session of April 11th, 2023, and the City Council meeting of April 11th, 2023?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Okay, go ahead.
I will just thank the mayor for her excellent proofreading skills. School teacher in action.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. All right, any other comments? All right. All in favor of approving the two sets of minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved the minutes. Now we'll move on to the proclamation. Is there anyone here to receive the Arbor Day proclamation, or should I read it from where I'm sitting?
I think you should just read it from there.
Okay, so our first proclamation is in recognition of Arbor Day 2023. Whereas Arbor Day will be celebrated nationwide on Friday, April 28th, and will provide people across the nation an opportunity to celebrate the importance of trees and forests to our economy, culture, history, and future. And whereas Arbor Day is celebrated in Minnesota during the month of May to promote the value and planting of trees. And whereas Arbor Day 2023 marks the 151st anniversary of the original United States Arbor Day celebration held on April 10th, 1872 in Nebraska City, Nebraska. And whereas trees are of a great value as they provide clean air and water, shade and energy savings, wildlife habitat, recreational opportunities, wood products, and jobs, while reducing stormwater runoff and capturing and storing carbon from the atmosphere, thereby offsetting greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas properly planting and caring for a diverse mix of trees makes community forests more resilient by minimizing the impacts of diseases, insects, and other stressors such as climate change and providing long-term community and environmental benefits. And whereas thoughtfully choosing, planting, and caring for a diverse mix of trees now supports resilient communities into the future. And whereas Arbor Day will be celebrated in conjunction with Earth Day by the City of Richfield through a park cleanup event at Veterans Park on April 27th. Now, therefore, I, Mary Supple, Mayor of the City of Richfield, do hereby proclaim April 28th, 2023 as Arbor Day in the City of Richfield as a way of promoting tree stewardship and mindful choices to help preserve and enhance our urban forests. Proclaim this 25th day of April, 2023. Were there any comments from council or? All right. Do we have anyone here from the Human Rights Commission for the next proclamation? All right, then I'll
don't
do
think
that
so,
one.
Mayor.
Go ahead.
I just said I don't think so, Mayor.
Okay, then I'll go ahead with that one too. And that is to honor Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month. Whereas Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month from May 1st through May 31st pays tribute to Asian and Pacific Americans, the fastest growing ethnic minority group in the United States of America, for their contributions to the United States of America and to celebrate the culture and history of these groups. And whereas May was designated as Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month because of the first documented arrival of Japanese immigrants in the United States on May 7, 1843, and the completion of the first transcontinental railroad on May 10, 1869, which was completed mostly by Chinese immigrant laborers. And whereas the first documented arrival of an Asian or Pacific Islander to Minnesota occurred in Duluth, Minnesota in 1875. And whereas Minnesota has provided asylum and relocation for many Asian refugees from the Vietnamese, Laotians, Cambodians, and Hmong in the 1970s and 1980s, and the Tibetans and Karen peoples from the 1990s, while other Asian and Pacific Islanders have immigrated to Minnesota in their pursuit of opportunities and freedom. And whereas at least 5.4% of the population in Richfield is of Asian or Pacific Islander origin, according to the 2021 estimates by the U.S. Census Bureau. And whereas Asian and Pacific Islanders have been subjected to discriminatory treatment throughout their time in the United States, including the wrongful internment of Japanese Americans during World War II and recent irrational blame for COVID-19. And whereas Asian and Pacific Americans have made the United States a better nation through their hard work, initiative, creativity, and sharing of their cultural heritage, and deserve to be recognized for their achievements and participation in our civic life. And whereas the Richfield Human Rights Commission supported a proclamation celebrating Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month at its April 4th, 2023 meeting, and now, therefore, I, Mary Supple, Mayor of City of Richfield, do proclaim the month of May as Asian and Pacific American Heritage Month in the City of Richfield and call on the people of Richfield to observe this month with appropriate programs, activities, and ceremonies, and to continue to honor the contributions of Asian and Pacific Islander Americans throughout the year. Proclaim this 25th day of April, 2023. Thank you. Is there any comments from council members? All right, thank you so much. All right, next we're moving on to approval of the agenda. Can I ask a procedural question? If we wish to remove something from the consent agenda and discuss it as, say, item 5, where it says consideration of any items removed from the consent calendar, should that be part of the motion for approving the agenda? Or can we just make that request?
I would have a motion to approve the agenda first, and then when you get to the consent agenda, if there's a desire to remove something, somebody should make a motion to remove an item from the consent agenda, and
Okay.
then approve it without that item.
All right, thank you for that clarification. All right, so before us, we have approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the agenda. Are there any questions? All right, Councilmember Troutman?
Thank you. I don't know if we need to necessarily pull this agenda item off, and we don't necessarily address questions raised in the audience, but I wondered, just given that there were some questions, if staff could talk a little bit about whether or not there were HRA funds that were actually going towards the project on the consent agenda.
So, Councilmember Troutman, I think what we'll do is if we approve the agenda and then when we get to consent, if we
Then
pull
we'll-
it for discussion
Okay.
rather than just do consent, does that work, City Attorney Tejan?
Mayor and council, you can either just have a discussion about that item, or you can remove that item from consent and then approve the rest of the consent agenda and then go on to that item. Either way, it's acceptable.
As the next, so it would get
Correct.
discussed either way.
Right.
All
Okay,
right.
thanks. Thank you.
So there's been a motion to approve the agenda and a second, I believe. Is that correct? All right, so all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, so now we'll move on to the consent agenda.
Thank you, Mayor Supple. The consent calendar contains several separate items which are acted upon by the City Council in one motion. Once the consent calendar has been approved, the individual items and recommended actions have also been approved. No further council action on these items is necessary. On tonight's consent calendar, item A, a request for a one-year extension of land use approvals for a 4-story, 55-unit multifamily development at 7700 Pillsbury Avenue South. Item B, consider a resolution approving the issuance of $10 million in revenue bonds by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority for the benefit of the Upper Post Flats housing development and delegating authority to conduct a public hearing related to this matter to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Item C, consider the approval of the Bureau of Criminal Apprehensions, BCA's Master Joint Powers Agreement, JPA, with Richfield Department of Public Safety, Police for access to the Criminal Justice Data Communications Network and the Court Data Services Subscriber Amendments to CJDN Subscriber Agreement. Item D, consider the approval of an agreement allowing Richfield Department of Public Safety to accept grant monies from the U.S. Department of Justice, Office of Justice Programs, the Edward Byrne Memorial Justice Grant, JAG program. Item E, consider approval for the City of Richfield to enter into an agreement with Independent School District 280 to administer their 2023 school board election. Item F, consider the approval of the bid tabulation and award a contract to Visu Sewer, Inc. for the 2023 sanitary rehabilitation program in the amount of $670,830.80 and authorize the city manager to approve contract changes up to $175,000 without further city council consideration. Item G, consider the approval of a contract agreement between the City of Richfield and Spone Ranch, Inc. in the amount of $180,000 to design and construct an expansion of the current skate park at Augsburg Park in 2023 and authorize staff to execute the agreement and oversee the project. Also, I just wanted to add, Julie Eddington from Kennedy and Graven is here and is available to answer questions on item 4B if you like.
So I would move that we remove item 4B from the consent agenda so that we can discuss it separately as item 5 on the agenda. Is there
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, now going back to the consent agenda, is there a motion to approve the remainder of the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion about any of the items on the consent agenda? Councilmember Whalen?
Just wanted to share for the last item at the recent Community Services Commission meeting. We were discussing that, and it sounds like, well, first, just wanted to thank staff for their role in getting the grant funding to help make that happen. And then also, it sounded like there's been some really exciting engagement with particularly student groups that use the skate park, that they got some really good input on design from a variety of skateboarders, skaters, scooterers, and others. And so I'm excited to see what comes out of that, even though I am fairly certain I will never use it. But I know that that's been a growing interest in the community, and so I'm excited to see that move forward.
All right, is there any other discussion? Okay, all in favor of approving items A, C, D, E, F, and G on the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved the consent agenda. Now we'll move on to items that were removed from the consent agenda, which would bring us to item 4B, which is to consider a resolution approving the issuance of $10 million in revenue bonds by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority for the benefit of the Upper Post Falls housing development and delegating authority to conduct a public hearing related to this matter to the Housing and Redevelopment Authority. Normally, when we have items that are pulled or that we do separately, we have a council member that presents them. Since this was pulled just tonight from the consent agenda, City Manager Rodriguez, would you be willing to read the executive summary for us?
Yes, Mayor Supple. The Upper Flats housing development is an extensive redevelopment and historic preservation project of 26 buildings within historic Fort Snelling. The development includes approximately 190 units, ranging from studios to 5-bedroom units, and will house hundreds of residents, likely adding more than 200 students to the Richfield School District. Dominium, doing business as Fort Snelling Leased Housing Associates, LLP developer, has approached the City Housing and Redevelopment Authority to request issuance of $10 million in conduit bonds to help manage increased costs of the project. The issuance of these bonds would not impact the city's ability to issue their own bank-qualified bonds and would not impact the city or HRA financially. It does, however, offer the HRA the opportunity to influence the project. HRA staff have worked with the developer on the following stipulations. Increased affordability, either 80 to 100 units at 50% area median income, or 40 to 55 units at 40% AMI. For a period of 25 years, contingent upon additional tax credit-related approvals by Minnesota Housing. Acceptance of Richfield Kids at Home families. Preference for Richfield Section 8 voucher holders, dependent on service area determination, and 1.5% upfront fee. Because the HRA is an appointed rather than elected body, the City Council must officially delegate to the HRA its authority to conduct the required public hearing and must consent to the issuance of the bonds. The attached resolution addresses both items. The recommended action is by motion, approve the attached resolution approving the issuance, sale, and delivery by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the City of Richfield, Minnesota, of its revenue obligations, delegating authority to the authority to conduct a public hearing and taking other actions with respect thereto.
So at this point, if someone wishes to make the motion and second it, we can open it up for discussion, ask questions of Attorney Eddington and any other staff that would be able to help us out. And then at that point, if people wish to make amendments, and we'll either vote it up or down. So is there someone that wishes to make the amendment? Or make the motion, rather. Excuse me.
I would move to approve the recommended action as was just stated.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. So now we're going to have discussion. Are there questions that people would like to bring forward or ask about? Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. My main question for staff is just about the order of operations and if our action tonight approves the issuance of these bonds or if it allows the HRA to do a final approval. And if it is approving it tonight, I guess I'm a little bit unclear why the public hearing happens after this.
Councilmember O'Leary, the IRS rules allow cities to issue bonds. They can also delegate that authority to an authority of your own, so your EDA or your HRA. IRS rules allow that, so it's not a problem. We do it quite a bit. I'd also want to address the fact that the bonds themselves are not an obligation of the city or the HRA. They are solely the obligation, if they're issued, by the developer. The developer pays all of the bonds. The city pays none. The reason why the HRA wanted to get involved with this is because they wanted to increase the project and provide more affordability to the area in general. And they're hoping that some of the kids that go to the Richfield schools will be able to live in the Fort Smith, which are being rehabbed by the developer.
Okay.
And just to clarify again, does our action tonight authorize the bonds, or would the HRA decision be the final decision on that?
The resolution that's before you would delegate the authority to have the public hearing at the HRA level, and it also gives your approval for them to issue the bonds when they have their meeting. The public hearing, they'll have the ability for people to speak at that public hearing. And then at the end of that public hearing, the HRA will make a decision as to whether to move forward or not with those funds.
Okay, so I'm clear on what that means, but just to restate it, since there were audience members concerned. So if we voted yes on this, the HRA has the public hearing and the HRA votes no, the bonds are not issued, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
All right, additional questions? All right, Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have a couple questions. One's just a procedural question. Typically, when there are hearings held, the for like the Planning Commission, they'll hold the hearing and then the authority will come back to us. Having the hearing haven't been held, is there a reason why we're not doing that with the HRA in this process, where they would hold the hearing and they'd make a recommendation to the council? I was just curious the rationale behind that.
So the IRS rules allow the city to delegate the authority to have the public hearing and to actually issue the bonds. So the HRA is the body that's issuing the bonds, so it would be naturally their ability to then say yes or no after. If the city is not comfortable with that, we can do something different, but that is the procedure that we often use in this situation. For example, I just did one in a county. The county gave the host approval to a different authority, and then they had the public hearing and issued bonds. So it's not uncommon.
Mayor?
Go ahead.
Councilmember Troutman and Ms. Eddington can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the difference too is that in the Planning Commission scenario, they're an advisory body to the city council, whereas the HRA is an independent
body. No, thank you. That is really helpful. Then my other question, I just wondered if you could share a little bit more about the mechanism of the issuance and what the HRA is actually doing by issuing the bonds. We're not creating the money. We're not responsible for paying it back. What does the word in layman's terms? What does the word issue mean in this context?
Sure, Councilmember Troutman. Housing bonds are complex. So you've got to, the HRA has already gone to the state government, Minnesota Management and Budget, to ask for allocation, housing allocation. You cannot do affordable bonds as a taxable private developer without that allocation. So we have $10 million of allocation to do affordable housing. That allows them to finish their Fort Snelling project and let everybody move in. And then it also allows them to get tax credits, which is part of how they pay those bonds back. But the bonds themselves, we call them conduit bonds. So really that means the HRA is issuing these bonds, but it has absolutely no responsibility to pay them. And it doesn't impact the city's credit rating at all. It does not require long-term work on the part of the HRA. And so I just want to make it very clear, like if there's a default, that would not be an issue for the city because it's not their default, it's the borrower's default. And the people that buy these bonds understand what they're getting. They're getting the borrower to pay all that back. Dominium has been around for a long time, and they've done a lot of projects. I have never heard of them defaulting on a project.
Thank you. And then maybe my last question, or just a comment. This is similar to what the city does with charter schools as they come through from time to time, and we issue those. It doesn't actually impact our borrowing capacity, impacts none of our funds, but we are just recognizing that this is generally a value, and we have to be the authorizer is not the right word. We have to be the issuer of those bonds, and they need that to get that done. And the HRA found a benefit for Richfield, and so they're making that decision, and we're supporting that, and within their inherent authority, which is different than our advisory boards. That's really, really helpful. Thank you.
All right, are there other comments or questions? Councilmember Whalen?
Just because it is a sort of strange area of the metro area, is that technically part of any city? Is that part of the airport? And then presumably based on the comments, it's still part of the Richfield School District, is it not?
Councilmember Whalen, you are correct that kids that live in the Fort Snelling area can go to the Richfield schools. What I wanted to also mention is that it's within Hennepin County. So Hennepin County has given the HRA the ability to do the bonds in Richfield. And so their approval has provided the HRA the ability to issue these bonds for the Fort Snelling area.
So to clarify, the Fort Snelling area is an unincorporated area, so they're not part of any city. It's part of the state of Minnesota and part of Hennepin County, but they're not part of any city, so there's not a city that would be responsible for that area. Is that correct?
Madam Mayor, you're absolutely correct, and the property is actually controlled by the DNR.
By the DNR? And would the DNR be able to do bonds, or is that why we have to have a host body to do this?
We did a lot of thinking about that before we came to the HRA and the city, and it was very difficult to get that done. So we went to the Hennepin County HRA and the county, and they agreed to give us the host approval to move forward.
Okay, other questions?
Yes, just to
Councilmember
follow
Whalen.
up, I think the benefit of the affordability is great. I generally am in support of this. But just to clarify, you said that any school age children living there may go to Richfield, or the default. I mean, anyone, I think open enrollment wise, anyone can come to Richfield. Where would they go if they didn't pick a different school?
That I do not know.
Okay.
I believe from having taught in Richfield that the kids at Fort Snelling are part of the Richfield School District.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions or comments?
And
Go ahead,
sorry,
Councilmember
to
Whalen.
follow up on that, I just want to say we are not the school board. There's a separate governing body. I will let them speak for most school things. But having talked with them in the past, they are generally in favor of any developments that bring in more students because the funding they receive is based on a per student ratio. And so I know staff typically answer questions later, but since we're making a decision about this now, having 200 students would be roughly that times, I believe it's around $8,000 is the per student funding. And so that would be however many, a 16 with however many zeros that ends up being an additional funding for the school district. And so in general, they have expressed in the past that any development that brings in more families is appreciated.
Okay, other questions, comments? It's my understanding that a number of these units would be multiple bedrooms, and that's something we're looking into. Is that something you can answer, or is there someone here from the development company that could answer that?
I think I would defer to Mr. Nolde, who's in the audience. He represents the developer.
All right, Mr. Nolde, if you could approach the podium and then state your name and how you're associated with this, and could you tell us what type of units are going to be included in this? Thank you.
Madam Mayor, members of council, Kyrie Duckett, representing Dominium Development. I'm not Mr. Nolde. You'll see he's quite a bit taller than I am, but I do have information on behalf of the entity to say that there's a mix of up to 5-bedroom units at the community in Fort Snelling. So anywhere between a studio apartment all the way up to 5 bedrooms, which is exceptionally rare when we're talking about deeply affordable units throughout the metro. That house larger families. 5-bedroom units are very rare, and I believe the entire development is up to 192 apartment homes on the entire complex.
All right, thank you. Are there other questions? Okay, go ahead.
As a follow-up to that, just curious the breakdown. I know sometimes we see projects that have like half studios and then like one multi-bedroom, which that one is still good, but I'm curious about that. And then my main question is I've heard from other cities with Dominium properties that there have been, frankly, repeated accusations of retaliation against tenants, tenants who have asked for repairs or have tried to organize tenant unions to negotiate for better conditions in Dominium units or Dominium buildings, and just was wondering if you could speak to that. I know it, as mentioned, it's not our community, but it is close, and would hope that the tenants are treated with respect and that their decisions to organize or decisions to ask for better conditions or just simple repairs would be met with respect and not retaliation.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Whalen, to your first question, I'm getting an exact unit count currently, but I've been assured by the development team that 75% and more of the apartment homes at the proposed development, I shouldn't say proposed, it's already existing. We have about 17% of the homes that are already occupied. About 26% of them are leased up, so they're already providing homes for members of the community. 75% and more of those those homes are 2 bedrooms and more. So less than 25% are 1-bedroom and studio units. To your first question. To your second question, I can speak generally to the track record that Dominium has as a company, being the developer, owner, and manager of nearly 40,000 apartment homes throughout the country. and we develop, own, and manage those apartment homes using the LIHTC program that I think staff had done a little bit mentioning, that has many, many, many layers of oversight from city, state, federal governments, along with the parties to each of those developments. They undergo a number of inspections, both physical and tenant inspections, to make sure that the folks that live in those homes qualify and that they're serving the folks that they're supposed to be serving. And so I can't speak to any specific allegation at this moment, but what I can assure you is that there are many layers of reviews that we've had great success throughout more than 50 years as a company in providing affordable homes. And we wouldn't be able to continue to do those if we were in default of any of those allegations that you raised, that would make us ineligible to do future development, and that's not the case at this moment.
Right. Thank you. Are there other additional questions? I was wondering if you could speak to, you said some of the units are already occupied, so the development's underway, so the $10 million in bonds would be used to finish the development or finish the project? Can you say more about that?
Madam Mayor, yes, that's roughly correct. As a general matter, we, especially the nature of the Fort Snelling development, it's a historic rehabilitation, so the work that was done to make those homes habitable was more intensive than putting up a new apartment building, which means that it was a gradual process, building by building, to make homes available. Generally, when we work with the communities that we work in, we try to get a certificate of occupancy as soon as possible so that they can immediately provide homes to members of the community. That is true for a number of homes. That being said, the overall cost of the project is looked at the end, and these bonds go to what we call a 50% test. And generally, the project would not be eligible for the LIHTC program, the low-income housing tax credits, unless the bonds as part of that project made up more than 50% of the cost of the project. Because of cost overruns that we experienced throughout the pandemic and continue to experience between labor and materials, we now are at a point where without these bonds, the project might not happen at all, might not get the low-income housing tax credit equity it needs to be financially feasible, and would not be available for homes for the more than 17% of the apartment community that is already leased and housing members of the community.
All right, thank you. Any additional questions? Thank you for your time. Do we have any other questions for staff? All right, does anyone else wish to make a statement or a comment? I was glancing at some of the questions that were asked during open forum, and I think most of them have been answered. I would say, in my opinion, the benefit is that it is providing more affordable housing for families that need more bedrooms and need larger spaces, because that's something that we are missing. And so that would be something that I would see as a benefit to help us out. Any other questions or comments? Commissioner Hayfoot or Leary?
I just wanted to mention, of course, tonight we're just considering referring it to the HRA, so I encourage the person who had these questions to also come to the public hearing for the HRA and raise them then, because that would really be the opportunity to dig more into those questions.
All right, any other comments or questions?
Right. If you're available on the night the HRA is meeting, please come to the public hearing, because that's more of the venue for these specific questions about this arrangement.
All right, any further discussion, any further questions? Councilmember Whalen.
Just not, as I'm not on the HRA, I'm comfortable with you all making the decision. You typically, the HRA handles most of the financial decisions relating to housing and development. I'm just curious, is this something you've already discussed on the HRA? And if so, if you would attempt a 1 or 2 minute summary of the discussion that's happened already.
So let me see if I can find the right spot here. So at the December 12th, 2022 meeting, there was a discussion of granting the preliminary approvals, because that allowed the developer to request the housing allocations from Minnesota Management and Budget. And so that was the initial part of the discussion is this something we're interested in pursuing? Could it help Richfield? And did we want to give a preliminary approval so that they could move forward in the process and ask for help? I believe I'm the only one present that was at that meeting, but Attorney Eddington may be able to add more.
I think you covered it. We need, before you can get allocation, you have to have a resolution approved by the body that says it's okay to move forward with the allocation. And that goes to Minnesota Management and Budget, along with numerous documents explaining why they need the allocation, what the project. So that was what the December resolution was all about. That's required to get. So that is the last time we spoke about it at the HRA.
All right. Did that answer your question, Councilmember Whalen? The question was raised about why does it go through the HRA and not the City Council? Is it possible to go through the City Council, even though it's probably not the common practice? Is that possible?
You can always go through the city. I think the HRA wanted it to go through them because they wanted to get some extra items from the developer. And also, they are really the housing people, and so they really wanted to make sure that the contracts and everything looked good, and they got what they wanted out of the development.
So the part of the report that talks about increasing the affordability and asking the developer to accept Richfield Kids at Home families and preference for Section 8 voucher holders and the upfront fees, that the type of thing?
Yes, although I will note that some of those we've had stumbling blocks with, right? Like, so for example, the voucher program, we're still figuring out if we use that or not. So there's things that are still up in the air about that, but I know that Melissa and Julie are on those items.
All right. Are there any further questions? Any further discussion? All right. We have a motion before us to approve the attached resolution approving the issuance, sale, and delivery by the Housing and Redevelopment Authority in and for the City of Richfield, Minnesota, of its revenue obligations, delegating authority to the authority to conduct a public hearing and taking other actions with respect thereto. Any other comments or questions? Thank you for the thorough discussion. All in favor, please say aye.
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 All opposed? All right. So as mentioned, this will be coming up for a public hearing at the next HRA meeting. So I would encourage people to come and ask their questions at that point as well. Thank you so much. All right, next we're going to move on to item 6, which is to consider the approval of a resolution amending the 2023 license permit and miscellaneous fees pursuant to the provisions of Appendix D of the Ordinance Code of the City of Richfield. Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
Thank you, Mayor. At the September 27th, 2022 City Council meeting, Council approved an ordinance amending Section 617, food establishments, 618, lodging establishments, and 619, public pools of the Richfield City Code. The regulations were updated to be consistent with delegated state requirements and miscellaneous edits for clarity related to food establishments, lodging establishments, and public pools. The changes in the fees for the updated ordinance were not included in the resolution amending Appendix D approved by the council at that same meeting. After consultation with the city attorney, it was recommended to bring these changes before council for approval. Per city code, amendments to Appendix D can be approved via resolution, so the changes do not require a new first and second reading of the ordinance. This change will be put into effect immediately after council approval. The attached resolution updates Appendix D to include the new language on food establishments and the pool reinspection fee. Anything from staff before I make the motion?
We're available for questions.
Okay. I will move that we adopt a resolution amending Appendix D, license, permit, and miscellaneous fees pursuant to the City Code of Richfield.
Second?
It's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions or discussion? All right, hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have passed the resolution. Next, we will move on to the city manager's report. City Manager Rodriguez.
Thank you, Mayor. Nothing to report tonight.
All right, then we'll move on to claims and payroll.
I'll move claims and payroll.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any questions? All right, all in favor of approving claims and payroll, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, we have approved the claims and payroll. Next, we'll move on to hats off to hometown hits, and we'll start off with Councilmember Whalen.
Thank you, Mayor. I know we already talked about the Arbor Day celebration and that particular park cleanup, but just want to encourage folks, as we now see all the garbage that accumulated over winter, to pick some up while you're out walking. There's also, if you're part of a group in town or want to form a group with some friends or neighbors, that our Adopt a Park program is a great way to help keep our parks clean.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Christensen.
Yes, I'd like to give a shout out to the fourth annual Richfield Citywide Food Drive this past weekend, with the help of the many individuals from everywhere, from the Richfield Leadership Foundation, State Farm Agency here in town, mortgage companies, and real estate groups. That was held this past weekend. They collected several truckloads that were given to Veep and to Richfield High School.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Hayford O'Leary.
Two items I wanted to mention. One was recognizing the Eco Fair, which was held, I think, 2 weeks ago, this Saturday, a week and a half ago. Really well attended. They had the benefit of kind of crappy weather, so a day to spend time inside and learn about going green. In particular, compliments to the League of Women Voters that organized it, as well as city staff that staffed several of the booths and assisted with the event overall. A lot of good handouts, a lot of good engagement at some of those booths, and it was great to see staff engaging with the community and the community being excited to do so. And then it's outside of Richfield, but it's generated a lot of discussion for us locally, so I want to recognize my personal excitement that House File 100, the cannabis bill, was passed today and moves to the Senate, and hopefully will bring needed changes to the state in terms of legalizing cannabis and expunging the record of those who have been convicted for cannabis crimes, and bring clarity, hopefully, as well to the city on those issues.
All right, thank you. Councilmember Troutman.
Thank you, Mayor. I just have two quick hats off. The first is this is the last week to submit a name for the Jane and Mary Jacobson Outstanding Citizen Award, and so you can look on the city website and fill out the form, send it to the Human Rights Commission. So that's the last agenda item. I had a second. It's right here. We're gonna go with one today.
Well,
thanks, everybody.
We can come back to you if it comes.
I'll come back to me. Thank you.
Thank you. So I had 3 items. I first of all want to introduce Barney, and we've passed this out to the whole council. So April 30th is National Therapy Animal Day. So I would like to do a hats off to Dan Smea and his partner Barney, the Basset Hound, and all of the other North Star Therapy Animal teams here in Richfield. As a part of Pet Partners, the North Star Therapy Animal teams play an essential role in improving human health and well-being through human-animal bond. And they have visited places in our community like Havenwood of Richfield, Main Street Village, Richfield Dual Language School, Blessed Trinity Catholic School, Watershed High School, Mikasa, Minnesota Independence College and Community, and a variety of other schools, churches, and youth groups. And so I'm extending gratitude and appreciation for their service to the community, and want to do a shout out to the therapy team of Dan and Barney. So if you want more information, we can get it for you, and we provided it for the council to look at as well. And did you remember what yours was?
I did, in fact, remember what it was. Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to give a shout out this spring. We have a lot of restaurants that are opening up. And so several that come to mind, Nautica Bowl just opened up, and Toma is opening up over by Target in the old Caribou spot. And my French is non-existent, but the French bakery, does anybody know, is it Tours de Jour? Does anybody, is that,
Close.
am I close?
Tous les jours, I think.
Tous les jours. So French Bakery, kitty corner to the hub, Nautical Bowl, Toma, and maybe some others, but those are top of mind. So you could eat anywhere, but eat in Richfield. We got a lot of great new options.
All right, thank you. I have two other things to talk about. One is to advertise that we do have some commission openings. We have 2 spots on the Advisory Board of Health and 2 spots on the Charter Commission, and the Charter Commission chair is in the audience here, so I'll do a shout out to former Mayor Kirsch. So if you would like to apply for those, you need to do so by Friday, April 28th, and you can go on the city website under the government tab and go to the commissions tab, and there's information there. They do have 2 separate processes for this. The city council would appoint the people to the Advisory Board of Health, but I believe one of the Hennepin County judges appoints the people to the Charter Commission. So it's 2 separate forms, but I would really encourage everybody to get involved there. Otherwise, the shortcut to finding it is go to richfieldmin.gov/commissions, and it'll take you directly to that page. And finally, I want to put out a kudos to our communications staff for the annual report that went out. And I really appreciate that. I hope everybody's looking at it. They did want to point out, if for some reason you did not get one at your home when it came in the mail, there's a supply of them here at City Hall, and you can also pick them up at the community center. So those are the 2 places. They had a few that, for whatever reason, didn't get delivered, and they're not sure where they didn't get delivered, so they want to make sure that there's a supply. So either the community center or the City Hall. And thank you again to the staff. Now, there is no further business, and so I would entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to adjourn the meeting. Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? We stand adjourned.